So the first thing I would do if I was a small company is I would understand and get clarity on what the vision for my business is 3 years out. And I would describe is a 4 or 5 page description every single aspect of my company. You know, what sales look like, what marketing look like, what operations looks like, what the customers are saying about me, how I'm using metrics.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm your host today, Mike Abramowitz, and I will tell you, I have a Dream 100 list, and this guy is on that list. We had one other guy that was on the show that was on the list. His name was Ryan Levesque, and it was an awesome conversation. And now we have number 2. He's the second in command now. Cameron Herold, thank you so much, so much for being here, brother.
Of course, happy to do it. And Ryan and I are part of it. We're part of Mastermind group years ago together. So good to know he was on the show too.
Yeah, he's such a solid dude. And from our dads, I mean, you just get a chance to connect with such unbelievable humans. So, and I have his book, Ask, and I read that book, around the same time that I read your double book here, So, and if you don't know Cameron Herold, these 2 books are game changers. So I want to start here. This is what I would like to hear from you, and then we can go whatever direction feels authentic. So sure. I read Double, learned about the Vivid Vision. You shared a lot of the origin story for me with 1-800-GOT-JUNK and how you're able to take, essentially, this is like a $3 to $5 million local service-based business and turned it into from a low 7-figure company to a multiple 9-figure company, and then like kind of pass the baton to the next person. They've obviously grown this thing even beyond, but the foundation that you laid for a local service business, growing it from low 7 to multiple 9, if there were 3 to 5 action items, specifics, that a listener of this show that is at that similar $3 to $5 million stage right now, that they leave right away, boom, we go right into it. These are the 3 to 5 things that you did or you would suggest to do with based on what you know now for them to start escalating from where they are to where they could be. I would love to hear you riff on that.
Yeah, I love this. And I'm rarely asked this one. It's actually pretty critical. And I think the same 5 would apply today. So I don't think it's anything new. I'll give you my experience share. And the actual numbers were, I joined Brian at 1-800-GOT-JUNK as employee number 14. We were just doing $2 million in revenue when I joined. It had taken him 10 years to go to 2 million. Actually, it had taken him, I think, 12 years to get to 2 million in revenue. And then 6 years later, we were doing 106 million in revenue system wide. So he had the foundation laid, but he really wasn't sure how to scale up the franchise organization. And I had grown up in the franchising industry. I had just finished growing a chain of private collision repair shops. I was a minority partner in a group that's now called Gerber Auto Collision in the United States and Boyd Auto Body in Canada. It's now the largest collision repair chain in the world. But prior to that, I'd been with a group called College Pro Painters. And I had been a franchisee for College Pro for 3 years, and then I was a general manager, and I had to go out and recruit, hire, and train franchisees for 4 years. And College Pro went on to become the largest residential house painting company on the planet. And I was one of their top franchisees, and I did that back in the 80s. So I really got my training at actually running a home services business. When I was 20 years old, I had 12 full-time employees. So I was running a real business at 20 that was my business. And that's really where I learned everything. So when I walked in with Brian's business, I kind of assessed where we were. And the first thing that I did was really get a good understanding of the vision of where he wanted to take the organization. So I now call that a vivid vision. Back in the day, we called it a painted picture. And he handed me a 2-page description of what his company would look like, act like, and feel like 3 years in the future. So he described his company December 31st, 2003. When I was joining him, it was October of 2000. So I leaned out 3 years into the future. And when I was clear on what he was building, I understood all the pieces that needed to happen and how we could reverse engineer that. Almost like a homeowner who wants to build this beautiful dream home, but they don't know what to do. When the contractor is clear what the home looks like, he can create the blueprints and the plans, and then they start building at the foundation and putting in the walls and the electrical and the plumbing. I could see all the electrical and the plumbing that needed to happen to scale 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So the first thing I would do if I was a small company is I would understand and get clarity on what the vision for my business is 3 years out. And I would describe is a 4 or 5 page description every single aspect of my company. You know, what sales look like, what marketing look like, what operations looks like, what the customers are saying about me, how I'm using metrics. And I really cover that in detail in my book, Vivid Vision, and then also in my first book, Double Double, the first chapter. I also covered it in The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs that I co-authored with Hal Elrod, who I think you know through Front Row Dads. So yeah, that would be the first starting point. The second thing that I did when I came into 1-800-GOT-JUNK and you know, I assessed the organization was they were losing money. Brian, the founder, wasn't making any money. The franchisees weren't making money. The company wasn't making money. So I pushed to raise our prices by about 40% in the first couple of months that I was there. And everybody in the company thought I was crazy. Now, admittedly, I was crazy, but we were still going to raise our prices. Now, they said, well, we're going to go bankrupt if we raise our prices. I said, we're going bankrupt anyway. So we got to raise our prices to at least give it a shot. And then Brian coined the term the FedEx of junk removal or the Starbucks of junk removal. We were going to position ourselves as a premium price, but to do that, we could then deliver. So raising our prices from, I think it was $338 a full load for a full truck to $458 a full truck gave us the margin to be able to hire the people, have the branding, create some marketing, and then really deliver. So that was step number 2, was to raise our prices and position ourselves properly.
So before we continue on the next, is it okay if I interject just a smidge?
Yeah, of course.
So I have Double Double right in front of me, and when I read a book, I fold pages.
Wow, you fold a lot of pages.
I fold pages of where there's a golden nugget of wisdom. Well, that's how many pages of nuggets of wisdom. So listener, if you're watching us on YouTube or the replay, if you're here live, that's how many nuggets of wisdom are inside of this book. And what I love about inside of Double Double, like you have example, like you have a really great example of Vivid Vision 2016. That's about when I started reading this book. So it's about 10 years ago. It's amazing. So I just want to shout that out. So if you need help with that Vivid Vision and you're a listener, Double Double is a really great resource. Cameron, you might even have more resources beyond Double Double at this point. What would you encourage if somebody wanted to like actually sit down and create their vivid vision? What would be a good starting place for someone?
Well, actually, I'll drop into the chat and you can maybe share it in the show notes. I'll drop in my current vivid vision for the COO Alliance, which is the core company that I'm scaling. And I just completed it because every 3 years I write the new one. So this is the December 31st, 2028 Vivid Vision document that describes what the COO Alliance will look like, act like, and feel like 3 years in the future. So maybe scroll down really slowly. So it talks about our members, right? And describes the members that we have inside of the organization, how many, where they're coming in from. Keep going down. And then it talks about our, what the organization looks like, where we hold our events, the kind of world-class content that we have inside the organization. And there's paragraphs and bullet points around all of those. It actually gets pretty detailed and shows a lot of the different content areas. It talks about how we as members and our team connect and recharge together. Talks about the benefits that members get and the community that they're a part of. Talks about our company culture and how they're a part of that culture. It speaks to our marketing and our branding. Talks about our team, right? The head office employees that we have scaling the COO Alliance. So that kind of is a good example. So if I was going to be starting out as a company and scaling my writing my vivid vision, first I would read the book. I would either grab the book or read the chapter from Double Double and start there. Number 2 is I would go somewhere quiet where I'm around nature, and I would take a notepad and a pen, and I would start doing a mind map and coming up with 3 to 5 bullet points to describe every single area of your business. And then I would pull all those bullet points into ChatGPT and see if it can write a good first draft for me of a vivid vision. And then I would just pass it to my leadership team and ask them what's missing. I wouldn't ask them if they like it. I would ask them what's missing to see if there's any components that don't have enough clarity, and I would merge those in. And then I would get, either a copywriter or run it through ChatGPT a couple more times to have a really, really elegant draft. And then lastly, I would add some design elements to it to make it look and feel like my brand. So That's a 1-minute crash course.
And here's a question. How does that play into the daily or the weekly or meeting cadence, or like how frequent is the owner? Am I using this, or is it just like word porn that looks really good? And I spent a couple of days in this and then it just like, sits there.
Yeah, vision without execution is hallucination. So you have to craft your vivid vision, and then you need all of your employees to reread it every 3 months. So at your annual and your quarterly planning meetings, your leadership team should be reading it. Right after your quarterlies, you want all of your employees to read it. You send it out to your customers, your suppliers, your partners. You send it out to potential employees so that they're reading the vivid vision and they're clear on what you're building. It's really important to make sure that everyone that touches your organization is clear on what you're scaling so that they can help you make that come true.
Why do you think customers would care about that?
Customers like it because they're inspired to start to work with you, right? Customers like it because they're going to join a successful organization that's building something. Nobody's excited about what we have now. They all want to help us co-create something and scale it up into the organization. They want to be a part of a successful brand.
Interesting. Well, so we got vivid vision is number 1. And then number 2, you said raise prices?
Raise prices is number 2. And then number 3, and this is, I said this,
Wait,
Brian.
Can I click on the raise prices real quick? Just
sure,
quick.
Go ahead.
So is there like a metrics or a percentage or like an algorithm or something that somebody can use to just try to gauge of like what is appropriate when it comes to the right amount?
I would benchmark against others in the industry, and I would try to price yourself in the top 5 to 10%. It's very, very difficult to be the Walmart where you're the lowest priced, right? But they've been doing it for, 6 decades, 7 decades. So I try to price myself more in more of the kind of top 10% of the bell curve. So I would just find out what's happening. Remember when I joined Brian, he didn't have a unique idea. It's not like junk removal was some crazy and unbelievable new concept that he created. There were 17,000 independent junk removal companies when he started the organization. In fact, he saw a guy in a McDonald's drive-through, and I think it said Mark's Hauling on the side of the truck, and he was like, oh, I can do that. And he went out and got a truck and started hauling junk. So it's not like it was a new idea, but the fact that we positioned ourselves as the FedEx of junk removal or the Starbucks of junk removal, as that premium price, then we were able to deliver. So I would just find out what your market, and we even went out to all of our competitors right after we made our raised our prices, and we made sure our competitors knew what our prices were. We faxed them our price list. We put our price list on our dashboard of our trucks to make sure that they knew what our prices were so they could raise theirs really quickly as well. And they all did.
And when you roll out a new price, whether it be today or in the past, what is the rollout? Is it like, hey, in the next 30 days or 60 days, we're going to increase your prices, or like
we ripped off the Band-Aid. But why wait 30 more days to be profitable? We needed to be profitable today.
I guess obviously it depends on services, but like if someone's in like a service agreement already, and
if you're in a service agreement, I would try to get written into your service agreement that you have at least annual price increases that index against inflation. So at least your services go up. If the CPI went up by 3.2%, you should raise your prices by 3.2% every year. Like that should be something that's in everyone's agreements.
Got it. Great. All right. So we got vivid vision. We got raise prices. What would be the next?
Number 3, I remember walking into the company and I said, we had to build something a little bit more than a business and a little bit less than a religion. And we had to get into that zone of a cult and build a really strong world-class company culture so that we could attract more employees and attract more customers and get the media writing about us. So that was a by design initiative, was to turn the organization into a cult, right? It was to create brands. It was to have branding all over our office. It was to put our press coverage up on the walls everywhere so people were excited and inspired. It was buying company coats for every single employee that had logos that were, 10 inches tall on the back of their coats. So they were all wandering around the city wearing company logos. It was creating, mantras and phrases that we had on the back of bathroom doors and on the insides of stalls in bathrooms and at whiteboards. And so we literally created a machine that felt like a cult without going too far. In fact, I was actually interviewed on a podcast a few years ago called A Little Bit Culty. And it's when company culture can go too far. And I was talking about how close to the edge can you push it to build a cult without being, a true cult, right? Without endangering people's lives or stripping them away from their families. But we borrowed a lot of the ideas from, places like religion and companies like Apple or, that kind of thing. Or where I really learned it was at College Pro Painters.
Curious on this. For your internal team.
And by the way, the reason it's important is no employee out there wants to go work for a garbage company. So we had to create a culture to attract top talent to come and work for a garbage company. It's not like we were some, building these insanely great products to challenge the status quo and change the human race, and we were Apple Computer. It's not like we were the coolest, fanciest restaurant chain with the, cutest girls working as waitresses. We hauled garbage. So we had to turn that into a cult to attract and to be kind of more magnetic. And then also to get the media writing about us. Why would the media write about a garbage company?
Does that mean that you're doing like good in the community, or is it like?
It means everything. The culture component was the starting point. So brand, trucks that were clean. Like, again, most garbage company trucks were just out there hauling garbage, but we were branded. We were wrapped vehicles. We were doing wrapped vehicles before most companies on the planet were doing wrapped vehicles. But I learned that at College Pro Painters, and then now every company out there does it. But Brian was doing wrapped vehicles in 2000, 25 years ago.
So this is an interesting question I just wanted to click on. With the culture is obviously from your internal team, you're raising your culture. One of the things that you asked me on your podcast when we flipped the script was about how do you enroll your clients to like be fans of the company to generate referrals? Was that a part of this like enrollment of like the culture, or is it just strictly for the internal team and kind of leaving clients separate?
There were a lot of wow moments that we did with our customers to get them talking. So we identified a couple things. We didn't do it as good as Cutco did, where you actually had specific triggers and statements to ask for referrals, but we definitely got people talking about us. So a couple of the trigger moments that we identified were, number one was every male in the household thought they were making the decision around their household services, right? House painting or renovations or junk removal. The guy thinks they're making the decision. The reality is it was the woman who decides who's coming onto their property. So we made sure that we sold to the woman, targeted the woman. Our marketing and branding was female focused. And then when we were on the job site, if the husband and wife were standing there, all of our energy was at her. We could ignore the husband because she was the one who was saying, no, I want these guys coming to the house. Right? We hired fraternity boys. We put them into golf shirts and beige pants. We made them look and feel like something that would be female friendly. So that was cognitive. It was by design. And then we made little jokes as we were doing the work about, well, at least we got all that work done that your lazy husband hasn't gotten done over the last couple months, right? You just point your finger and we'll do all the work. And it was those little moments that were scripted that became conversation pieces. And then lastly, they're paying us a lot of money, but they're left with nothing. We're taking their junk away. So what we did is we swept up after ourselves and pointed to what we just swept up and said, now you've even got a nice clean space to use again. So we made those like conversational moments that would give them something to talk about, but we knew who to target.
That's good. That's good. So creating this cult, and obviously, on our podcast, myself, my business partner, Cutco guys. So we've had many, many conversations on the Better Than Rich show. If you go back to the early episodes on like how to do that, I think that's something we already have kind of discussed on the show, which is great. If there's anything else you want to hit on there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, one big one. I read a book years ago called Trends, and I remember that I think it was part 3 of the book, and it spoke to how women make 85% of the household buying decisions. But if you think about a woman let's say that she's, 50 years old and it's a husband and wife, she's making 50% of their household buying decisions, but she's probably making the decisions for her parents, and she's probably making the decisions for his parents. So any woman in the 40 to 60 range is making 5/6 of the adult buying decisions. Like, that's a lot of buying power. So we had female marketers, female branders, female copywriters. Our entire marketing department was, for the most part, it was all women because we understood who we were marketing to.
What's interesting as you say that is, have you noticed that recently, because these women see that there's like a self-schedule option available, making phone calls is friction for them? Or do you feel like they still want to make phone calls? Or do you feel like they want to self-schedule? Do you see any trends
Really,
towards that?
yeah, really interesting question. In 2003, Brian and I were talking about 1-800-GOT-JUNK and talking about where we were going. I had just finished scaling a internet company. We built and sold a private currency company back at the height of the internet. So I was already in the tech age, doing display ads, doing online ads, doing affiliate marketing back in 98 to 2000. So I'd been around the online world already. In 2003, we decided to try to get, over the next 3 years, 30% of our revenue from people booking on our website directly instead of phoning the company. So that was 2003. That was 23 years ago. We made a decision to get 30% of our revenue booking directly online without talking to a human, because our call center cost us 7% of our revenue. So we knew that we could erase that cost. That was a very early cognizant decision to create an online booking engine. We worked with a company here in Vancouver, Canada, called Elastic Path to create all that and build it for us. Where Brian is bumping into, now he's way past 30%. He's probably more like 50% booking online. The roadblock that he's sadly bumping into now that prevents him from getting to 100% is the company name. All right, the company name back in 2000 was brilliant. 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Like, just pick up the phone and call us North America wide. Even in Australia, it's the same phone number. Very, very simple to get a hold of us. But if you want people to book on a website and your company name is your phone number, right, it's almost like he needs to change the name to 1-800-GOT-JUNK.com or gotjunk.com to move away from that. But they've done very well. My guess is they're probably, of the 950 million in revenue they'll do this year, my guess is that about 50% of that will be booked by customers directly on the website, which, if you think of, 500 million in revenue times 7%, that saves the company $35 million.
It's amazing. And listener, if you didn't catch that, I think that's really critical. If you're running a home service company and you do not offer some sort of self-scheduling option without talking to a human, you potentially are reducing your profits, but you're also potentially losing customers because they might not want to talk to someone. They might be like sitting there like 10 p.m. at night and they just want to give an option to like get something on the calendar for tomorrow and not talk to someone, right?
Right. They're in bed doing kind of scrolling and wanting to book something. They're sitting at a doctor's office. They're sitting at work and they don't really want to make a phone call about a personal item while they're sitting at their desk at work. Yeah, you've got to give customers the option to do that. And it is 2026 after all, right?
And I'm not talking about just requesting a quote, right, Cameron? I'm talking
Correct.
like book an appointment.
Booking the order. I always believe that a customer and a company should act as if the person who's phoning you wants to purchase. More often than not, that's the truth. No one walks into a store. We're walking down a street and we walk into a store, and after about 30 seconds, somebody comes up and says, "Can we help you?" And I always go, "No, I'm good," and I walk out the store. The reality was I wanted to buy something. I wasn't sure what it was. They just got to me too soon. They need to get to me when I'm holding an item in my hand and say, "Would you like to try that on?" Right? But what ends up happening is they end up asking the wrong thing and turning their customer away and pushing us out of the door. And then they go, "Oh, they were just browsing. They weren't interested." No, I wouldn't have walked in the store unless I wanted to buy something. I shouldn't know what I wanted to buy yet.
It's a good analogy. This is great. Let's keep rolling. I'm excited to see what else is going to come out of your mouth.
So number 3 was creating that world-class company culture, right? A little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion. Number 4 was we had no money for marketing. We were effectively broke. For the first couple of years, we were putting it into a better franchise training program, a better franchise sales program, coaching our franchisees, which I'll speak to in a few minutes. But we were putting it all into like the people side of the business. We had no money for marketing. So we did what I had done at College Pro Painters and what Brian had done back in the early days of the Rubbish Boys before he changed the name over to 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We became very, very good at generating free press coverage for our company by contacting the media. So we learned which media outlets would cover us, meaning newspapers, magazines, radio stations, TV shows. Now, you could add bloggers, podcasters, e-zines, etc. And we would pick up the phone. we would reach out to them and say, hey, do you have 2 minutes? I think I have a good story for you. All of them say yes, because they're always looking for good content. And as long as we understand their target audience, they're apt to give us a shot. So we give them the rough kind of 5 bullet points for the story idea that we've got, and most of them said yes. So we crafted 5 core press angles that we pitched for about 3 years, and we landed 5,200 individual stories about our company before Facebook even existed. So if we had done that when social media existed, we could have then shared all those episodes and, content everywhere. But still, 5,200 stories, including being on Oprah, CNBC, Squawk Box. We were in Fortune magazine. Like, we were in the actual print magazines and print newspapers of almost every major outlet that you could consider. Like, we were in the
what
Dallas
would be today's
Morning
version of that?
Chicago Tribune, San Francisco Chronicle, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. They all had us in the actual, and then Forbes, Fortune, Inc., Success, Entrepreneur. We were in all of it.
It seems like it's easier today. I mean, 5,200 releases, 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago compared to today. Like, everyone, there's a podcast all over the place, social media, tons of different platforms.
The problem is that most people are lazy and most people don't take the advice. I actually wrote about it in my book, Free PR. Most people will just keep sending out emails all day long. But the reality is, every writer that woke up this morning is sitting with 100 emails of people pitching them. But what we do is we pick up the phone and I go, hey, Mike, I think I have a good podcast idea for you. Do you have 2 minutes? You're going to say yes. Or you're going to say, I'm on a deadline. Call me tomorrow. Cool. I'll call you tomorrow. But if I email you the whole idea, then you're sitting in a stack of 100 and you're like, nope, 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 nope. So what we did is cut through the clutter. Now, I'll give you the 5 core story angles, and these could even work for your company today. So the media would write about each of these 5 stories about you and everybody listening. In fact, I just spoke at a big company conference for a group called Breakthrough Academy. And they're an organization that has a really strong training program for people in the home services industry. So there were about 400 entrepreneurs there. I was speaking to them all. These story ideas could work for them too. Story number 1 is called the Genesis. It's how you started, right? It's the why you started the podcast or why you started the business. It's the opportunity that you saw or the problem that you were encountering that you wanted to fix. It's the quitting your shitty job and starting this story. That's the Genesis story. Every entrepreneur has that story, right? Brian's is the Mark's hauling in the McDonald's drive-through, right? Starting a summer job. He still tells that story probably once a week to somebody because it's relevant. It's not time sensitive. It inspires and it educates and it works across every outlet. Story number 2 is the hero's journey, right? It's what every movie is based on. It's basically you fall in love with the character. The character has a big problem. They struggle. There's like a lesson from the edge. They almost lose the business, almost lose their life, almost lose their marriage. They lose their health and then they recover and somehow they turn it around and their business becomes successful. So it's the trials and tribulations. It's the struggles. And frankly, it's a lot of the truth of running a company that most people don't talk about today because it doesn't serve us to talk about it on social media, right? We talk about it 3 years later, but not in the moment. But that's the hero's journey. Number 3 is a story about your customers. So every business, like my COO Alliance, I can talk about how the COO Alliance has changed a company from Tampa, Florida called College Hunks Hauling Junk, and how their COO became a member of the COO Alliance and helped them scale and build culture. How their COO still emails me today, even though he was a member 8 years ago. Right? I got a text message from their COO this morning. So I can tell that story about a customer in Tampa. I could tell it about a customer in Dallas, about a customer in San Francisco. I can basically rinse and repeat and tell the same story in 50 different markets and have 50 different story angles. And I can go back and tell the story again next year to other media outlets. So you can create multiple stories in multiple markets on that same story angle. The 4th one is leveraging technology, right? So clearly everyone wants to talking about AI. We can talk about where AI failed, where we struggled with AI, how we put AI in place in our business. And the media is looking for those AI angles today or the tech angles today. And the last is a company culture story, right? How do you create a company culture that attracts Gen Y and Gen Z to come and work for a shitty home services business or a house painting company or an auto body chain or a junk removal business? You talk about your company culture. But that's 5 angles that can create 5,000 stories if you follow the methodology I put in my book, Free PR.
So good. Yeah, so good. Listener, you could obviously take that clip right there. And one of the things that I'm going to do, I'll tell you this, Cameron, I don't know if you want this from me when I do it, but I'm going to take that clip, my note takers taking notes, transcribe that. I'm going to run it through my GPT, and I'm going to tell it, following Jeff Woods was on the podcast. He gave us the CRIT framework: context, role, interview, and then task. And I'm going to tell it, here's the context. I want you to help me create these story angles. I want you to take on the role as my PR agent. I want you to interview me one question at a time with at least 5 questions to pull out of me each one for each of these angles. And then you're tasked with giving me an output that I could fire off and send as an email and also as a phone script to call some of these people. This is awesome. That was awesome. That was a great segment there.
I love it. Yeah. And then there's also more you can do about it. I call it the digital trifecta, where you take the media that you generate, you share it on your website, share it on social media, you put it on your press page, and then you drive traffic to it, right? So you actually push people's eyeballs to see the pieces, and you share the same piece on social media multiple times. Like, I'll share our episode 3 times this year on Facebook, 3 times on LinkedIn, 3 times on Instagram. I'll email out to our list, and then I'll put it as part of my quarterly press email that goes out, and it'll be linked with 6 other press hits that I get this quarter as well. And then once it's on my Facebook, I'll boost it, right, to actually get more eyeballs in front of it. So I do that with the press that I'm on already. You don't get on Oprah and go, wow, that's going to change the business. It'll change your business for about 24 hours, and then people have moved on. But if you can keep talking about being on Oprah for 23 years, or if you can keep sharing that episode, that's where you get the real leverage. So let's talk about number 5.
Please keep going.
The 5th thing that I do, and this is why I'm saying, like, these things are, my content is always time. It lasts forever. Thankfully, I was an expert on scaling companies and on people, not on the newest marketing trend, right? I wasn't the Facebook ad expert or the TikTok expert or the MySpace expert, right? I've always been the expert on this stuff, which just continues to be timeless. So the 5th thing is growing your people. And I really, really get frustrated with entrepreneurs who get a coach, who join masterminds, who read books, who watch videos, who go to seminars, but they don't grow their second in command, or they don't grow their leadership team, or they don't grow the management skills of all the people in their company that are managing people. So what you end up with, like, is you're like a duck with one wing that's really strong and the other wing is really weak, and you end up flying in a circle. And if entrepreneurs would spend more time growing the skill sets and investing in their leaders, that's actually the name of my leadership course. It's called Invest in Your Leaders. And I think it's like $350 per person, lifetime access to have the 12 skills that we trained everyone in at College Pro Painters. The skills that I trained Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk, in 23 years ago, right? The skills that people pay me thousands of dollars a year to coach them are basically these 12 skills. So when you can actually take anyone in your company that manages people and teach them how to run meetings, teach them how to plan priorities and time management, show them and certify them on project management, running meetings, doing classroom teaching, running one-on-one coaching meetings, managing communication like email and Slack messages. These are the skills that almost nobody ever gets trained in, and yet they go out every day doing it. Or at best, they'll be like, oh, I read a book on interviewing. Yeah, that's not training. But I've done 100 job interviews. Yeah, but maybe you've done it wrong every time. It's why the best athletes on the planet have coaches, and that's why I bundled that content. But I was maniacal around growing the skills and confidence and connections of everyone in our organization that managed people. So I would grow the skills of my franchisees. I would grow the skills of my leadership team. I would grow the skills of anyone who managed people in the organization. And then I knew I could get results through others.
Let me click on that for just a moment. I feel like some people listen to the show, they're like, I'm really good at teaching this stuff. I could teach my people the time management or the skills that you're listing off on how to have these one-on-ones. But I think where a lot of them drop the ball is maintaining it. It's like the check-ins. It's like quizzing them. One of the things I used to do with my sales team, every Wednesday we would meet and it would be a drill for skill with Mike. And I would drill my people on certain phrases or certain sections of the presentation. So I knew whether or not they were actually good at certain parts that I wanted them to be good at. And it's almost like policing, but in a helpful way. What is what is your version of that? If you teach the skill, but like, how does a business owner actually know that the skill is being implemented or it is actually, good?
Yeah.
And yeah.
So the drill for skills is one way to see people grow. By the way, Dan Martell, you've got his book over your right shoulder, Buy Back Your Time. His second in command, Matt Verlacki, was a member of the COO Alliance. So Dan was a member of mastermind communities. He and I were in communities together growing our skills, but then he paid to have his COO in a community with my group of COOs to grow that person's skills, right? They took, anyway. So, so in kind of doing the drill for skill is one thing. Another one is letting the person do a sales call and listen in on the sales call and let them fail 6 times through that call. So often the leader stops the call right away and jumps in to save the day, but they miss the other 3 times the salesperson was going to fail over the course of that 15-minute or 1-hour call. I sit back and shut up, listen to the entire thing, and then I sit down with the salesperson. I go, what did you do well? Give me 3 things you did really well. What are 3 things you think you could do better at from that sales call? Okay. And then let me show you what I think you did well. And then let me show you what I think you could do better. And I actually teach that in the Invest in Your Leaders training in the module on classroom teaching, and then in GSNR. Another thing that I would do is recommend that, when you were growing up, you probably thought your mom and dad were idiots. I thought my mom and dad were idiots, but I probably would have met your dad and go, he's a pretty smart guy. So I would have listened to, Uncle Dave, and you probably would have listened to Uncle John, right? Okay. It's why when people hire someone like me to come in and coach or run training sessions, their employees will listen to me more than they'll listen to you. It's so stupid. But so get some outside trainers to train your salespeople, because after a while, if you're the only one training them, it starts to fall on deaf ears.
Can you do a version of what you said on operations? Sorry to interrupt. Because I feel like sales is a little bit easier.
Same with operations.
Can you give me an example or like what you would test on from like an operation seat?
Sure. I would look at their way of managing priorities and managing their time. I would have them show me their calendar. I would have them show me all the projects that are on their plate. The reason that most people are late with projects is they're not very good at priority management. Oh, I ran out of time. Bullshit. You never put that project in your calendar. You didn't think about all the steps that needed to get done to get that project to completion. I'll give an example. I was coaching a CEO one day, and I said she was working on her vivid vision. Her name was Paula. She was from Houston. I said, Paula, when is your vivid vision going to get done? She goes, I'll have you my final draft by Monday. I'm like, no, you won't. She goes, yeah, I will. I'm like, no, you haven't even done draft 1. When are you going to finish draft 1? She goes, I'll do it this week. I said, no. How long will it take you to finish draft 1? She goes, 2 hours. I said, when in your calendar this week do you have a 2-hour block that you can put into your calendar that you will do that work? She goes, Thursday from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock. I go, great, put it in. Cool. When are you going to get feedback on draft 1? How long is it going to take for those people to get it back to you? Are they all going to do it Friday morning from 9 till 10? So block that time off. When are you going to work on draft 2? Put that into your calendar. And all of a sudden she realized it was going to take her till the middle of the following week to get me her vivid vision back, because she understood priority management and project management and time blocking, right? And that's something, again, that I teach in the Investor in Leaders training. That's very operational.
That's great.
I had to learn this stuff because at College Pro Painters, we only had 17 weeks to run the company. We did $64 million in house painting from May 1st until August 31st. And then we shut the business down, and for 8 months we had 0 revenue. And then we would go out and hire 800 franchisees, and in 6 weeks they would hire 8,000 students to paint houses. And over that period, we would train 8,800 people to paint houses. So we became operationally world class at priority management, time blocking, coaching, situational leadership.
Speak to this person real quick, Cameron. This all sounds great, Cameron. This is the person. This all sounds really great. But I'm like over here doing bids and estimates and spiking jobs and creating all this. And I have my staff. Who has time to hold all these people accountable? I don't want to babysit them. This sounds like babysit. This sounds like micromanagement. I just want to have someone who's competent, that is just already going to know all the things that you're saying. They should already know how to do sales calls, or they should already know how to do the operational things and prioritize.
So there's a couple of core parts in there. I would say to that person, how much training have you had on recruiting interviewing, and hiring people. Tell me what that training was. And I can guarantee you within 5 minutes, they've had no fucking training doing it. So if you really want those really good people that are really skilled and can really do their job, then you better be good at recruiting, interviewing, and hiring, or you are dreaming. Number two is when you have those people in your company and you're so busy doing the work, what you need to do is pretend that you have no arms and no legs and can't speak, and decide who's going to do the work and pick a person to do every project or every task that's on your to-do list. Everyone listening right now has a to-do list, but it does not have their name at the top. It doesn't say Mike's to-do list. It doesn't say Cameron's to-do list. It just says to-do list. So take a look at item 1, decide who you're going to delegate it to. And if your answer is, I don't have someone, pick someone anyway, and then spend your time coaching and developing and growing that person's skills and confidence and connections so they can do the work, or get busy and using a recruiter or an executive search firm or a fractional or a freelancer who you can delegate that work to. But entrepreneurs who keep saying, I'm the only one that can paint a house, will always run a small business.
Crushed it. Man, I knew you'd give some juice there, Cameron.
So here's the thing is I'm a little bit lazy on running companies, right? Like even when I joined Brian, I'll never forget this. I went out in the trucks I was supposed to go out in the trucks to get training on hauling junk. And I came home at lunchtime and started getting changed at the office into my normal business clothes. He goes, what are you doing? You've only been out in the trucks for 4 hours. I'm like, dude, I get it. We pick stuff up, we put it in the truck, we take it to a dump, we get rid of it. I understand. That's not what the business is about. And he's like, well, what's it about? If it's not about junk removal, I said it's about customer engagement, it's about growing our people, it's about marketing and sales. Like, I understand the product. I don't need to become a master at putting shit into a truck. I don't need to be the best garbage man in the world. And so many entrepreneurs get stuck at being a tactician that they forget that their role is to get results through people.
I think it's because in many cases, they started as the tactician, and
Correct.
it grew to a business. So because it started that way, they never knew how to actually escape it from working like in it to working in the business to on the business, right?
And then they don't put themselves in a room like Front Row Dads or like the COO Alliance or like the Genius Network where they surround themselves with other people who will call them on their bullshit, right? So they just keep lying to themselves, going, I'm the only one that can do this. And their family goes, yeah, you're probably right. You're the only one that can do it because your family's never run a business. And I see everybody who's doing it all themselves like a fly trying to get out the window. You know, they're going to keep banging their head on the window until they get through but they always end up dead on the windowsill. You never get through the window. You can try as hard as you want. You won't get through the window. Or you can sit back and look for the shortcut, and the path of least resistance is actually delegating and growing your people. And if you charged a little bit more, you could afford to hire better people.
Before I take a hard pivot into a different direction, is there anything else you want to say on that initial question that led it out?
Because you asked for the 5 things. Those are the 5 things.
Okay, because that was awesome, and that was like
those are off the top of my head. That's not scripted anywhere. Those are just
that's
true.
That is the perfect question to lead and launch into this episode. So I love that we pulled that from you. I want to take a pivot into this question. Let's say someone's listening, they have a department of marketing, they have a department of sales, they have a department of fulfillment, and they have maybe a department of finance, right? So those are like this big 4 of their company, let's say. And then there's this operations. Obviously, the COO Alliance is a COO, right? A chief operational officer. If someone has those people in place, the head of those departments, or if someone does not have those head of departments in place, at what point in time do they need to think about a COO or a director of operations or an integrator if they follow EOS, versus I need to staff those departments before I really even think about the operational seat? Like, what is is there a step-by-step from your lens of giving this person some guidance?
Yeah, the first one is that if you don't have an executive assistant, you are one. Right. So if you're doing minimum wage work as the entrepreneur, that's the first thing to get off your plate to free up your time to work on the business instead of in the business. It's the first thing to free up your time to work on the more critical parts of the business. Second part is as soon as you recognize that you don't have the time to develop and align and coach people because you're so busy doing operational work, that might be the time to bring in your first operational person. And it could be an executive assistant who can do some of that work for you. And then it could be a director of operations or an operations manager or a general manager. At some point when you're in the kind of 5 to 10 million range, you're probably hiring VP level. And when you're over 10 million, you might be starting to hire your first C-level executives.
How do you define operations? So when you said like like when you say executive assistant, some people hear administrative, invoicing, or like customer service, relationship work, inbox management, data entry. That they might hear executive assistant as that piece.
It's really, yeah, the executive assistant is anything that is on your plate that is a minimum wage job.
And what's a step above that?
Managing people, managing projects, organization, coordinating, recruiting, running interviews, training people, dealing with things that are more than a minimum wage work, $50 an hour tasks. The stuff that I'm the only one that can do it, that tends to be stuff that an operations person can do.
How do you delineate the hiring and the training and stuff from the operations seat from the HR seat?
I usually try to go first on generating revenue. I try to hire, if I'm going to start hiring people, I try to generate more revenue first. So I try to lean into sales and marketing, because there's not a single problem that exists that writing a check can't solve. So if you have money, then you can build the back end. I think so often entrepreneurs get stuck with, I can't afford to hire the ops people, so I'll hire no one. What I would do is say, okay, wait, what you said is you can't afford. The reason you can't afford is because you don't have enough money. So raise your prices, generate more gross margin, get rid of some of your overhead, and let's lean into sales and marketing so we can afford.
Mm. If you were going to lean into sales and marketing as the launch point, what would be the first 3 steps that you might take for launching with sales and marketing? If you're like, all right, I did those things, I raised my prices, cut my overhead, we're ready to launch sales and marketing. What would be like the first 3 things that you would want a business owner in the trades or home services or any business to look at first?
I think if I was in the home services space, is I would get wrapped vehicles, right? I would get every vehicle I can, because it's so cheap to get those things done. But I would get some kind of wrapped branded vehicles so that, every customer, every supplier, and all of your employees see a brand and a perception of something that's bigger and better and cleaner. Currently, one of my coaching clients, I coach a guy named Tommy Mello, who runs a group called A1 Garage. So I coach Tommy, and then his second in command, Luke, is in the COO Alliance. They have all these great branded vehicles, which is step 1. But step 2 is they're parking them all at their office. I'm like, dude, you're freaking crazy. You've got a couple hundred of these branded vehicles in all of your cities that you're operating in. They should all be out parked on the street at night so that everybody can see them, right? And people are like, oh, well, what happens if somebody slashes my tires? A, it won't happen. B, even if it does happen, a tire's only a couple $100. That's about 10 times cheaper than a billboard. What if it happens twice a year? Somebody could slash your tire every 2 weeks and it's still cheaper than a billboard. And then, well, how do people get to my truck? The same way they get to your office. They take their bike, they take the bus, they drive a car, they get out of the car, and they get into your truck. So parking high visibility branded areas and wrapped vehicles is number 2. And then on your job sites, make sure that your employees have really good branded clothing with really big logos on the back of them. And then some kind of job site signage, whether it's the big kind of the little flags that get the pop-up flags or signs. Those basic things are what I would be doing as starting points. And then I think the last one is putting in place a referral-based sales program like you guys were so genius at Cutco, that your current customers are going to be able to generate business. But again, most companies won't do that. They'll show up with their crappy truck or their like the reason College Pro literally could outsell any of the 35-year professional Italian house painters was because they showed up covered in paint, smelling like cigarette smoke, with a clipboard, and they go, oh, it'll be $1,200. And meanwhile, we showed up with a golf shirt branded, with a wrapped vehicle, with a binder full of our customer reference letters, before and after photos. The Italian guy was way better at painting houses than we were, but I could outsell him 2 to 1.
And so I want to hear you on this. I know we're coming towards the end here. What about conversion opportunities inside their funnel, like people that are getting lost? Would you put that as where would you put that on the priority list of like follow up of leads that kind of got lost in the pipeline, estimates that they didn't follow up on, or appointments that got canceled?
It's really about so what you're talking about is taking a look at the sales funnel, like from leads to opportunities to first meetings to close, whatever your sales funnel's metrics are. And it's looking at which of those metrics is the biggest gear, right? Or which is the most important gear. Like if I change that one thing, it'll make the biggest difference. I remember at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, one of our franchisees was all obsessed about his gas cost and how much gas his trucks were using. I'm like, gas is 2.4% of your P&L. Labor is 28% of your P&L. Maybe focus on labor. So he put in place his RFID chips in all of his trucks, and then he started paying his guys for when the truck started until when the truck stopped at the end of the day. Because what they were doing is like, oh, I started at 9, I finished at 5. No, you started at 9:10 and you finished at 4:50, which means that 20 minutes that weren't a big deal, but that was 15 minutes a day times 5 days a week times 52 weeks was costing him about, $1,000, $2,000 per year per employee. That was a bigger gear to worry about. With my sister, when she was running College Pro Painters, she was the number one franchisee for College Pro in Canada. She was closing 65% of every estimate that she did. So she could have pushed harder to get to 70. What she did is she just raised her prices 20%. That was a bigger gear, right? It was a bigger lever for her to pull. So it depends. I can't answer your question until I would study the P&L or until the person looks at the metrics on their calendar. And that's, by the way, where coaching is beneficial, or putting yourself in a mastermind and sharing your ideas with others that are in your industry. You're going to get better results than just trying to figure it out yourself.
And that's assuming they're able to have visibility on those metrics, right?
Right.
And if they don't have visibility on those metrics, then that's probably a good starting place, right?
Yeah.
Cameron, man, this flew by. Was there anything I did not ask you that you're like, man, I was kind of hoping to talk about that today that we didn't get to during this conversation?
No, I don't think so, man. You covered a lot. That was great. And I love that starting point question, which really took us down some good rabbit holes.
Well, we ask every guest the same question towards the end of every episode, and then I'm sure people are going to want to stay in touch with you. We'll tell them where to go. But what does it mean to you to be better than rich?
I got this tattoo about a year ago, and it's in Hindi, and it's the Ram Dass quote about walking each other home. I think for me, it's the reality that none of this stuff actually matters, that we are just walking each other home. The death rate is still 100%. And I think that when you throw money aside and remember that we're all just humans trying to figure out the struggle together, that if you can just connect with every person that you encounter, whether it's the girl making your coffee, the guy pumping your car with gas, the doorman, the employee, the CEO, wherever, and remember that everybody's struggling, everybody's just dealing with the whole human condition, that everybody's just walking each other home. Maybe it's not better than rich, but it's certainly more important than being rich.
Beautiful. I had a very similar conversation with my rabbi yesterday, actually. It's coincidence why you just brought that up. So that's awesome. Cameron, I know people are going to want to stay in touch with you, with the COO Alliance. They're going to want to learn more. Where might they go? You just saying Tommy Mello COO is in your program. They're like, all right, maybe I want to kind of send my people to that room, because a lot of people follow, Home Service Millionaire and, Tommy's work. And we've been trying to get him on the show, actually. So let's go.
Well, drop me. I'll introduce you to Tommy. I was on his podcast about, I think back in October or August, I was on Tommy's podcast. I'm happy to introduce you, by the way, to anybody that you want to be on your pod. I'm happy to do that intro after ours goes live. So do that. Easiest way to stay in touch with me or to get all my information, go to CameronHerold.com, and it's HEROLD. So CameronHerold.com. It has links to my Second in Command podcast. It has links to all 6 of my books, links to my COO Alliance. It has a link to the Invest in Your Leaders training. It's all there.
CameronHerold.com. Awesome. Cameron, I cannot thank you enough. I said at the very beginning, you've been on my Dream 100 since I read Giftology from John Rowland and heard about the Brooks Brothers story in that book, and then knowing that was you, and then investigating who you are, and then reading Double Double and learning from that, and then getting a chance to just engage with the COO and a couple of your members from the COO Alliance, like Nicole Pham and others, and then reading Second in Command and doing workshops for your crew and speaking on your podcast, to being here. It's like surreal for me. I'm actually getting emotional just thinking about, like, it's really, really remarkable to just be like on the sidelines and like kind of witnessing your success. And then like now, like being here in a conversation with you, it's just like a really surreal moment for me. So thank you so much for bringing your value to our listeners and to myself. And I'm just excited to just kind of see where it continues to evolve from here. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks very much for having me, Mike. Look forward to being able to share this episode too.
Awesome. And everyone, listener, leave today better than you found it. Till next time on the Better Than Rich Show. Cheers.
Bye, all.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at betterthan_rich and join our Facebook group at the Better Than Rich Show. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, leave today better than you found it.